The
Very
world
good.
is falling apart as usual. Always has been, always will be.
Or it
Nothing new
will
under the sun.
it will form something amazing and new. You never
Something
know.
new and amazing will happen
Yes. No,
from the
actually,
carnage.
I was reading actually this paper from Nora Bateson, Aphanipoiesis. You know,
Mhm.
I think we talked about this on another in another situation, but the idea that um, there are catastrophes, bad things happening, very fast, and then you
Yep.
have on the other side, something that emerges also very fast. Very a lot of changes in a lot of time. Like in the Cambrian explosion of species,
Like
basically.
a kairos,
Yeah, and then
intensified time. Yeah. Hmm.
but then you also the idea that you have like this insidious kind of incremental things that change to the worst. To the if
Hmm.
you have like for example cancer or you get addicted to alcohol, and this is like it's creeping in. It's not happening overnight. It's happening over like a
Yeah.
longer period of time. And so this term that Nora Bateson kind of coined, Aphanipoiesis, is describing the exact opposite. The incremental betterment of everything. But it's like good things that happening, but not from one day to another, but good things that creeping up on you in a kind of way. So it's like, and so the thing that we have to train our eye not only to look at the bad things that are happening slow or fast, but also the good things that are happening
Hmm.
slow and fast. And
Yeah.
so it's like
Like,
hmm?
well, we're aging, but actually, older people are happier than younger people. It's kind of interesting on average.
That
So
are
there's an
more.
advantage. There's a decay and a disillusion and a brokenness, and then at the same time, there's something sweet arising. I
Yeah,
was telling you about sitting under the apple tree, watching all the nice firm apples just fall from the tree, and
yeah.
looking at the dew on the grass. But I mean, I'm waxing poetic here, Tom.
No,
Please continue.
but it's true. But I mean, it's like also like in our life. I mean, you don't fall in love with somebody overnight. It's also like an incremental process. Or if you work, with Parallax, you can do like these big things, courses or podcasts. But there's also, these little things that make it incrementally better. And it's like you
Mhm.
don't notice that. There's like, I mean, I'm tempted even to say that there is a libidinal drive towards more complexity and beauty and all of this, and then there is this death drive, this kind of uh,
Mhm.
insidious kind of drive towards destruction and death and chaos and all of this.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, and they're happening kind of arising simultaneously.
Yeah, exactly.
So when something really horrible happens, it's also the advent of perhaps something not horrible arising because the horror has exhausted itself or played itself out. And so this horror that's been building up for a long time,
Yeah,
um, not that it can be kind of rationalized away, but but I was listening to this Rabbi Friedman. He was talking about how it's like there's this kind of, you need to have this intensely constructive, positive attitude all the
yeah,
time when something occurs, which is a weird thing to say, perhaps when you look at news events and things like that. You're like, oh, okay, it's like going to hell, which is the knee jerk reaction. But
yeah.
life does kind of continue, and
Yeah, but what I'm trying to still find out is, how that actually works within the, you know, ecology of mind, let's say, to use that Bateson term,
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
so it's like because you have that apparently that drive to life and complexity and beauty and all of this and to the betterment of everything, but at the same time you have apparently a drive that drives into destruction and death and all of this. And so how I'm not entirely sure how that plays out within the economy of
mm-hmm.
mind and feelings, because they apparently happen at the same time, You know,
Yeah.
sometimes it's more like one thing is more in the subconscious, and the other times the other one. But it's a weird thing because we're subjected
Well,
to both in a kind of sense.
well, I was wondering about, I was thinking about something that Luke said about Gurdjieff, and he defined the word sin, as
Mm.
sleep, which I thought was interesting. It's like these things happen. The death drive happens in sleep when we are willfully asleep. you know,
Yeah.
we're not attending to life. Then yeah, we move into this deathly march.
Mm.
But then if you attend to life, then you can see that you can see that you can move in that this direction, other direction you were saying, towards complexity and beauty and all that, because you're attending to it. You're deeply attending to it. So it's something to do with attention.
Yeah. That's interesting.
Attention is the thing that makes it. So if we're asleep, we're just the army of zombies.
Yeah.
These Hamas terrorists, or people who are deeply asleep. They just don't have any sensitivity to existence, so they become killer robots,
Mm.
able to do things that are unconscionable, or or whatever. Perhaps I think that's a state of sleep. I think like what Hitler did was he kind of hypnotized the entire German population into a state of terror and sleep at the same time. Like
Yeah.
terror and sleep are sort of like
There's only
similar
one
states.
thing that I will say today about the conflict.
What's that?
It's a quote by Judith Butler. It's a couple of years old, but still, she said, "Understanding Hamas, Hezbollah as social movements that are progressive, that are on the left, that are part of the global left is extremely important." That's the only thing that I want to say here.
What the fuck does that mean? You can't just say something like that and not explain it.
I can.
Why are they on the left? And anyway, I don't get it.
Yeah, but apparently there's a huge fraction of the left and radical left in Europe that looks at it exactly in that way. So.
But aren't they just revolutionaries? Same old Bolshevik gang that.
Yeah.
They're just the same old Bolshevik sons of a bitches.
Mm. Yeah.
They're willing to eat their children.
Yeah. Did I mention that I didn't like Judith Butler?
Oh yeah, fuck Judith Butler. Hey, let's just say right now, fuck Judith Butler.
She's basically a professor of literature that made up stories. That's the truth.
What if we did this whole podcast and you defended Hamas?
No, I won't do that. No,
Just as a joke, like as a really poorly, like a joke in the most poor taste possible. No, I won't do that either. I mean, come on, like fuck off.
No, that's even way too far out for us. I mean, we can do a lot, but there's a line.
No, we can't do that. We can't do that.
No.
Yeah.
But anyhow, so because I was just throwing that in because you were had mentioned Israel now twice, but I really want to talk about this, what you're talking about, sleeping, death drive, libido, and all of this, because in light of our last conversation, meta crisis, I was thinking a lot about resentment,
Mm-hmm.
and so how do I frame this? Because it all kind of belongs together. And so we're talking about the meta crisis, and I think in the sense I would think Nora Bateson would agree that's a very narrow way of looking at the future, because you can look, you can have apparently different perspectives, and I think there's some resentment playing into the bias to look at our world in a meta crisis way, and it's basically a resentment against the, let's say, positive libidinal forces of life. That's what I think.
Yeah. And I mean, you don't want to talk about the Israel thing, but I think that sort of that's, you can see that happening there.
I don't know what you mean.
Well, the extreme of this resentment is a bunch of, people, playing out that resentment in terms of expressing their murderous desire to destroy life,
Yeah.
to behead babies, if you like. That's the extreme of resentment.
Yeah.
It's like, let's become so anti-life. Let's become so completely disrespectful to life and so murderously resentful, that anything goes.
Yeah.
That there's no more. Yeah.
But there's something, in the whole concept, there's something bothering me specifically. And so I was thinking about this in context of feminism. I know I'm making like lots of wild topics and wild claims, but the thing is, from my point of view, there is, feminism as, like an ideal movement, like a philosophical ideal. And then there's the way that, feminism is treated by lots of activists and feminists. And then there are women that, in my estimation, with my knowledge and empathy, I would describe as full-fledged women, women with a well-rounded personality that are kind of not, and I found it kind of interesting that you said that are not asleep in terms of, let's say the dark triad that they have, or, the characteristics, and are fully fledged women. And in my experience, those well-rounded women seldom want anything to do with feminism. And if I compare, these fully fledged round women, like from their personality wise,
women?
Yeah, no, I mean like from
well-rounded. Okay.
Well-rounded personalities,
Okay.
So if I compare these women to, these resentful activists, the resentful feminists, I think, there's some ressentiment within their own psyche that they're not fully embrace their, womanhood, or can't yet embrace.
Yeah. What about pride? Like, what about this notion of pride?
Well, it's the same thing.
Just like just being fully proud of who you are, and that's the full one. What you would say, the full-bodied expression.
I said well-rounded personality.
Yeah. Well-rounded personality would have a certain kind of pride and joy in its existence, and and belief in itself, and that kind of thing.
Right? Yeah, but I think if you externalize,
rather than act the opposite of behaving and acting from resentment.
I think if you have to go to a pride parade and have your flag, I would argue that you are not really that you don't have really embodied pride.
Well,
an integrated
maybe
pride.
It sometimes expresses itself as a lack of pride. That's possible.
That's
too.
Exactly.
That's what I mean. So the overt expression of pride might express, a lack of pride.
Exactly. And the same goes on, with
or an insecurity
with feminism. There's a lack of true femininity, that I observe with feminists, with the activists.
Or a denial of it. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, and so and the same thing goes for thinking about the meta crisis. There is like a lack of appreciation for the forces of life.
Well, maybe there's a perverse desire. Maybe there's a sort of perverse desire for destruction in that. Like you want it to be a crisis.
Yeah,
Because
but that's
it will
exactly
it will make it it will make your life more meaningful.
But that's exactly
That's
what I'm
possible.
saying. That's exactly because that's the death drive. And then you have like a resentment for the libidinal forces, for the libidinal drive. And that's exactly what I mean.
Sure. Yeah. No, I think that. Yeah, I wasn't speaking about pride in terms of LGBT and all that. I was speaking about pride in terms of actual pride. It's like because I was listening to the reason I was thinking about it again. I'm sorry to bring up the Israel thing again because I was listening to this rabbi speak about. He's like, okay, there's something happened here in Israel. Okay, what do we do? You feel pride in yourself and you go and deal with it as quickly as possible, and that's what should be done. So it's not a sort of it's not a kind of negative nationalism. It's more like full appreciation of who you are, and then needing to do what has to be done. Like if you have to go to war against people like that, you go and do it and get it done, and then get it done as quickly as possible, and then get out of there. That's what I like this analysis of the thing, rather than just making a big drama about it. Making more of a drama. I mean, it is a drama, but rather than getting too much into ideology and getting too much into dichotomies, just integral pride.
Yeah, I mean, since you brought that up again, let me just say one thing. Understanding Hamas, Hezbollah as social movements that are progressive, that are on the left, that are part of the global left, is extremely important. Just let me...
Okay. Fuck off, Tom. Fuck off, Judith Butler.
Yes. Mm.
That's all you want to say, huh? That's the only, I can't rope you into saying anything about this stuff. You just won't talk about it.
No, but the issue is that I'm an idiot, and I have no educated opinion on. I mean, I have opinions, but I have no educated historical political opinions on what's going on. It's like I have what comes out, what I feel are biases. So it's like, but these are not. So I can't contribute anything of value to the whole thing except to express that I'm, that I, just watch the videos and just I'm crying, really.
Yeah, that happened to me too. I was, I saw the videos and I saw the horror. It's like horror. Okay, horror, doom scrolling, and I was doing that a little bit. And I was like, why am I doing that? And then I saw one video, and it was a family. They're sitting there. The terrorist is there.
Exactly. Yeah.
The terrorists are there. The family. They're just sitting on by the wall, and there's two kids, and they're both the kids are crying.
Yeah.
And the one kid is saying to the other kid, is asking his parents, is like, can my sister come back? And the sister has just been shot by the terrorist. And the mother says, no, your sister can't go back. And then the kid just starts to cry even more.
Yeah.
And then I started to cry.
Yeah.
I was sitting there. I started to sob, and I went outside and I started to sob. And it's like, and then I came inside, and my wife's like, take care of your own kids. Stop doom scrolling. Stop this, right? Get it together. But I couldn't. I went back and I started to sob and sob and sob and sob. And I did that for about an hour, and then it was over. And now I'm not sobbing anymore. I'm just. It's I had to, there's some reason that I needed that emotional I needed that emotional outlet.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's proper. That's a good. I think to witness something like that, then to have that reaction is perfectly natural and should and then you should get over it and go on with your life and do things the best you can. But But it was just so hard to watch. It was just so hard to watch that kind of horror. It's just like, so that's the only thing, I guess what I would say, it's just horror. It's like, it's so hard you can't turn away completely, and then you can't just spend your life looking at that shit. But anyway.
Yeah, you know what I mean, I was actually referring to this video as well, and what I found so strange
that was the video that got you too.
Yes, because so what was so because if you look at the I mean, Israel is a secularized state, so they probably have IKEA and stuff, because the interior of that place looks like every other European place where I live, where you live.
It looks beautiful, the neighborhoods and
I mean just
ordinary
no. What, Andrew? What I mean is, you only have this window where you look at the family lying down, and just the stuff the stuff that they had in their place. It's just like normal westernized stuff. They're probably, and so like the connection that you instantly have to know that could have happened here. That's so we have like this. It's not a foreign environment in which that happened.
Yeah.
Right. And so and that's the the thing, that it seems so close, because for what it's worth, I don't think there has ever been like an industrial or like a scientific or revolution in the Arab world, or any kind of enlightenment phase. And so you have it's a completely different environment, but if you see these videos that happen basically from within the Western sphere, although I know that's a little bit difficult to say so, but
yeah, sure. Yeah. Well, yeah, it's familiarity, because you cry because you imagine yourself in that situation. Whereas it's hard to imagine yourself in oneself in a situation that you have no familiarity with, like Palestine or West Bank. Yeah, for sure.
And I know enough families that I could project into the situation, family settings, and it's just this familiarity.
Yeah, and if you were a sort of if you were Islamic and you saw that happening in Gaza, you might have the same reaction, of seeing the baby or whatever that we have, because it's like, But it's kind of awkward to talk about.
Yeah, I don't know. I've nothing to add there. I mean, I can read Judith Butler again if you need me to.
Oh yeah, just read her one more time so I can say fuck off Judith Butler again.
Yes, so that it really sinks in. Understanding Hamas, Hezbollah as social movements that are progressive, that are on the left, that are part of the global left, is extremely important.
Fuck off Judith Butler.
Yeah,
which makes me a right winger or something, probably. But fuck off, person who thinks I'm a right winger too.
Yeah,
just fuck off, okay?
Yeah. Anyhow, so how do we save this conversation from
You want to go back into this, emergence?
But we can talk about resentment. Resentment is a fascinating issue and aspect of our lives.
What do you feel resentment about, Tom?
I feel resentful against Judith Butler, to be quite honest.
Why?
Why?
Yeah.
Because of the bullshit that she says.
Was this something she said recently, or is it?
No. I told you. No. I said that. It's an old quote.
Oh, it's an old quote. It's an old quote. You think she would? Is she still around, or where is Judith Butler? She's still breathing.
Yeah.
That's unfortunate. Well, she says stuff like that. No.
It's not that the conflict between Israel and Palestine is somewhat new. That doesn't, even if it's an old quote, they have this conflict that at least since 1947. So,
Yeah, but doesn't this change things somewhat? I mean, maybe at least it does for me. It's like, okay, whatever like moral equivalency I could project onto that is gone in a sense. I mean, I don't have that anymore.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I must say, I probably have a different. What's bothering me, or it's not really bothering me, but because I understand it, so that even in our liminal web or whatever, it's like there are lots of leftists that are pro Hamas, basically, and but me as a German, necessarily I have a kind of different perspective on this whole thing, because for whatever happened.
well, because they execute gay people, because they're it says right in their constitution that they want to destroy Jews, kill Jews, eradicate Israel from the face of the planet, because they're a bunch of thugs and criminals, and how can you support them? I mean,
well, I mean,
Israel's not it's not perfect. It's got a lot of problems, but they have hospitals with good hospitals, and where Arabs and Jews work together, and I don't know. I mean, I just don't. It seems pretty black and white to me so far. I mean, from my observations of it seems quite clear that any moral equivalence is out the window. Like, forget about it. Just like the Israeli army warns people before they bomb them. They have all kinds of codes of ethics. They're perhaps they're just plain clear that they're a more civilized country, and that, I don't know, it just seems black and white to me. But again, maybe this is going to offend some people. Maybe we shouldn't put out this podcast. I don't know.
No, we should. No, we should. But this is exactly what I wanted to say. For me as a German, it is pretty black and white. Because I mean, if you just look at the, what happened, within, the show and the Second World War, we, the Germans did a lot of things to eradicate the Jews, right? And then the
which is what Hamas wants to do, and that is their program. So they are actual, yes.
Yeah, let me say what I want to say, Andrew. So then the international community decided to give them a space, like a safe space, right, in that area. Yeah. And it was not an arbitrary selection of a place, because they had a history with that place to begin with. Yeah. And that place that they were given, it's not a big country. It's like Israel is a fraction in its size from Germany. It's very tiny. It's like, I looked it up. It's like the same size than Mumbai, basically. It's I mean, not big. It's engulfed by Arab states, you know? And so for me, it's like to attack this safe space. And, it's like to attack babies and to attack a rave. That has nothing to do with, a political argument. This is just an extermination event, or like something.
It's the same thing. It's just the Shoah. It's just a continuation of that. It's the same sort of scapegoating anti-Semitism that has existed for centuries,
Yeah.
But it's again, we see, it's funny because we see the world doesn't change as much. You think that we've progressed or there's something, and then we see something like this. It's like, oh, same old thing, same old,
Yeah.
I mean,
it's weird because, so we had this Ukraine crisis and everybody was, up in arms, but now you have this crisis. And I mean, I was asking myself, so China and Russia, what do they have skin in the game in this conflict? And they probably don't. And I was thinking about, Thomas Piketty and his idea of end of history, that we found like a kind of global balance, that sure, like this conflicts can erupt, but they don't really change the general balance of things, because it's like it seems that no major shifts happen. It's like we're staying the same. There is this end of history. It's like it's just a repetition of the same now, again and again and again.
Yeah, yeah. Well, maybe you get a repetition of the same until the hope would be that things get so bad. Things get so the horror really sinks in, and then because the horror really sinks in, there could be a bit of a shift. There could be, this could maybe this would sort out the whole refugee crisis in Israel. Eventually, after.
Yeah.
That would be the hope that they figure that out, they figure that whole situation out, which has been kind of ambiguous for a long time. But or it just or it just continues and continues and continues, and yeah.
But still, I must confess, I don't understand this infatuation with the left and the Hamas and the Palestinians and the Arab world, because I mean, it's like if you look at the purport, and this is like harks back to the beginning of our conversation about resentment and not being well integrated. So you have the left that has values of against misogyny and against violence and against all of these good things. No, against all these bad things like misogyny. But then you have like this infatuation with the values and the religion of the Arab world, which is like, it's kind of crazy to me that this.
It's like a shadow.
That's what I mean. It's super weird to me.
It's weird that people can, the LGBT community who are living in countries where they're mostly safe, from being executed for their sexuality, are supporting in Hamas that one of the commandos, they found out that he was gay, and they tortured him to death and killed him because he was gay. So and they take gay people and they push them off buildings, things like that, and they're so against any kind of freedom and liberality at all, and they want some medieval version of Islam to take over the world. They're just a religious death cult. So perhaps the reason that the left identifies with them is that they identify with the resentment, perhaps.
Yeah, that's
what you were talking about.
Yes. It's a very strange phenomenon, but I mean, it's like it's hard to put in words. It's hard to put the finger on it, but it must have something to do with resentment and the fact that all these things like natural pride are not really integrated. It's like if you have. I mean, it's the same thing with like in spirituality. When you look at this Ibiza or like this new age spirituality where everybody's declaring themselves like a shaman, but they're never scratching the surface of what's spiritual possible. And somebody who really embodies or like has deep insights into spirituality would never,
would never put on a show about it, whatever.
Yes, and it's like it's this weird thing where, depth and superficiality are kind of confused. I don't know what it is. It's
depth and superficiality are confused. What do you mean by? I'm not following the logic there.
Now, what I mean is like, so the feminists, the activists, are kind of cheering on a superficial level for feminist values and same rights and whatever, but at the same time they're supporting systems where misogyny is like on the daily.
Well, they only support the oppressed. They only support the under the so-called oppressed, right? They'll support those people who are oppressed, and they'll hate those people who are successful. I mean, another thing that this rabbi was saying, that if you want to know anything about anti-Semitism, it's envy, basically. Anti-Semitism is a form of envy, because you have this tiny minority of very successful people who have, how many Nobel Prize winners were Jewish, and et cetera, et cetera. Very educated, very successful, very wealthy, very positive people. And then, so they're the people you're going to hate,
Mm.
in a way, because they're successful, and you're going to hate them because they have something that you don't have. So I think that we can look at this as the pathology of envy, and envy always looks for a scapegoat, as we know from Girard.
Yeah, but
And
isn't
Jews are
envy
like the ultimate scapegoat, because they're usually responsible. Most of what they're responsible for is pretty positive in the world, as far as I can see.
But isn't
yet,
envy like the result of resentment?
yeah, of course. Mm-hmm.
Let me read something else to you. I mean, incidentally, it's not Judith Butler, but it's like I saw that this morning. So this guy. I can highly recommend it on Twitter. It's called Rolf Degen, and he always highlights some studies that were made. And so it's called Expressing Moral Outrage at Others People's Moral Transgressions Helps Us to Whitewash Our Own Misdeeds. Recent work suggests that moral outrage. Come, get bigger here. What's going on? Why doesn't it? Recent work suggests that moral outrage may in part be driven by a desire to bolster a threatened moral identity. When our meat-eating participants read a passage reminding them of the harms associated with their diet, they expressed greater moral outrage at SeaWorld Park for animal abuse violations. When we allowed meat eaters to express moral outrage at factory farm owners and operators, they reported feeling less guilty and rated their own moral character higher, and so on and so forth. So you have, this idea that if you're not integrating your shadow, if you're not integrating, your envy, if you're not integrating, let's say the dark triad or whatever, so you lash out in forms of resentment, and so I found
absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of liberal guilt or something, right? That expression that what you're speaking of.
Yeah.
And then trying to be. There's also a way, like having solidarity for some oppressed group is a weird sort of thing, right? It's a way of avoiding your own immediate surroundings. There's a voyeuristic, perverse quality to that.
Yeah. It's a weird phenomenon. I mean, we're all subjected to that in to more or less degrees, but still, I think, I still think that, like, what sets us apart, as a Western culture, is that we're able to talk about these things. That we can talk about scapegoat mechanism. We can say how much Christianity was informed by that. We can make fun of God and Jesus. And I mean, have you ever seen Preacher, the series? That's just an hilarious show about what a fuck up God and Jesus were, and so it's just hilarious. And so we had this scientific revolution and the Enlightenment that put that into context what we did the 1500 years before. And I feel like the Arab world never had that, so don't talk bad about their prophet, and that he bedded an 11-year-old and wrote in the Quran ways how to make sure that she's not damaged when you bed her for future times. So that's just it's like the Bible is not nice either, and ugly at times, but at least we're able to talk about these things.
Yeah, well, and also I think with Christianity and Judaism, there's a kind of reform built into the system. There's like, Christianity, nobody would take some of the Old Testament statements literally anymore because they're not meant to be taken literally. whereas there's this literalism in the Islamic world about, well, at least in the extreme versions, about how the Quran is supposed to be interpreted. So I think literalism, is the issue. Fully, like, believing in something, but not just believing in the proposition of it without any reflection or thought, or just
Yeah.
like in the Jewish tradition, you have the oral Torah and you have the written Torah, and there's the unspoken, and then you can reform the tradition over time. There's a way to reform it. There's a way that the rabbis get together and they say, okay, this is not working anymore. We're not just going to kill all the Canaanites anymore. We don't do that anymore. That's wrong. And but you can't do that in the more literalist traditions.
Yeah.
But I guess in a way, I'm not an expert, so I'm talking out of my hat on some level. But it does seem to be that fanaticism and literalism is this sort of rampaging pathology.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm also talking just out of my ass. I have no educated opinion about this. It's just like people that studied these phenomenons way deeper and intenser than I have. So
yeah, I guess we should be humble. And
didn't Che Guevara not only kill women and children and stuff? I mean, isn't that one of the great ironies of history, that his picture was sold on posters and T-shirts like millions fold, but he has a really bad track record in terms of killing innocent bystanders?
I don't know, but no doubt. Yeah, the revolutionaries,
Yeah.
they're
Communism and
the
socialism.
good terrorists. They're good. They're called. There's a book by Doris Lessing called "The Good Terrorists."
Yeah.
They're the good terrorists. Not the bad ones, but the good ones. So, do you want to read the Judith before we end this podcast?
Okay.
Do you want to read the Judith
one last time?
Butler quote one more time?
Yes, one more time. Okay. Understanding Hamas, Hezbollah as social movements that are progressive, that are on the left, that are part of the global left, it's extremely important.
Fuck you, Judith.
Fuck you, Judith.